Well, good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Claire Cameron here with another rendition of Claire's Science Classroom. We are on the other side of my kitchen today. I just needed a little bit more surface area or counter space. And so today we are actually going to do two experiments that are kind of in the same vein. So it doesn't take that much extra materials or anything like that. We are going to be exploring surface tension, and we're going to do that two different ways. One is through magic milk, and the other one you've actually probably seen a couple of times already floating around the internet. It's the one where you do water, you get some pepper, and you kind of make the pepper disappear with some dish soap. So the things you will need are, as always, of course, listed in the description box, but also what you're going to need is you're going to need some black pepper. You are going to need a kind of like a shallow pie dish. I have this clear one, and you're just going to fill it up with water. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just enough, to cover the bottom and then some. You're going to need a couple of Q-tips, some dish soap, and then another little thing of some water just, kind of off to the side. And then also, that's what you need for the basic. And for magic milk, you are also going to need milk. It could be any kind of milk that you have. I have whole milk, and that's usually what they recommend. This is just because whole milk has the most fats, and that'll come into play with the magic milk. And then you also need some food coloring. So those are the basic things you need for this experiment. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first one, which is the pepper and dish soap. That is a tongue twister one. So I'm going to tilt this camera down and hopefully it'll be visible enough. Let's see. Pull it out. There we go. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill up your dish. Again, it doesn't have to be a pie dish. I just have this one because it's clear and it's easy to see. But if you have a plate or anything like that, that works too. So you fill it up with a little bit of some water, and you're going to take your pepper and you're going to sprinkle pepper enough to kind of cover the top. So you do want, a fair amount of pepper on there. Try not to sneeze if it gets up your nose. But there we go. So we want kind of, hopefully you guys can see, about that much pepper on the surface. And you'll notice that the pepper, unlike salt or sugar, when it's put in water, it doesn't sink. Pepper is kind of what you could call hydrophobic. Basically, it's light enough that it floats on top of water, and it doesn't like to mix with water like sugar or salt would. It doesn't dissolve with water. And so what we're gonna do is we're first gonna take a Q-tip, and we're gonna dip one end of it in our dish of just plain water. So this is just water. And then we're going to stick our Q-tip into the pepper solution, and notice when you pull the Q-tip out that it's got a bunch of pepper on it, and it's kind of, hopefully that's focusing, it's kind of dirty. Notice all that pepper sticking on there when we just used the water. Now we're going to take this, dip it in a little bit of water, then we're also going to take it and dip it in some dish soap. And you just want a little bit, it doesn't have to be completely covered, so just a little bit of some dish soap. And then we're going to take this and we're going to put it into the pepper and the water, and we're going to watch as the pepper kind of disperses. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm going to try to hold it up a little bit so that you can see it more, how the pepper just kind of disappeared. So when you stuck it in there, it kind of just all moved off to this side. And this is kind of like twofold, this experiment. One is the fact that obviously surface tension comes into play here. And what we mean by surface tension is water molecules, the way they form is kind of like a tight structure, and they form what we call surface tension. You can think of that as either like a little dome or kind of like a film on the surface of water and things like that. And so it doesn't really like to be broken. And pepper, because it is hydrophobic, it doesn't mix with water, and it's light enough that it floats on top of water, usually can just kind of hang out on top of the surface tension. What we did when we dipped it in dish soap is dish soap. I'm gonna have to say that today. It breaks down or breaks the surface tension of water. And so basically what happens is some of the pepper sinks. Hopefully you guys can see that. Some of the pepper will sink to the bottom where we stuck it in initially, and the rest of it kind of shoots off to the side because water wants to keep that surface tension, so it'll spread out around the part that's not broken. The surface tension that's not broken will spread out, and it will carry the pepper with it. That's the first part of this experiment. The second part is kind of highlights, I guess, the necessity of why it's so important to wash our hands. You can think of this as if you just use water, how we did with the first side of the Q-tip, and how we dipped it in, it just got covered in pepper. You can almost think of those as germs. But when you use the dish soap side, notice there's no pepper on it at all, and that's because dish soap soap. I'm just gonna say soap. Soap breaks down a lot of that bacteria, or you could say it breaks down the surface tension of water, or you could say kind of gets to the nitty-gritty of all those germs. And so that's why it's important to use soap when we're washing our hands, is not just so we can, you know, spread the germs around, but so we can break them down and kind of make them disappear. So that's the pepper trick. Again, it's first you dip it in water, and notice it doesn't do anything. Take a little bit of some soap, stick it in, and you can kind of see the pepper doesn't want to be around that, and it shoots off to the side. So that's the first one. Next, I'm going to dump this out and dry it off, and then we're going to put some milk in here instead. You can use 2 different dishes if you want. I just didn't want to get too dirty, so I'm going to use one. So I'm going to go over to the sink real quick, pour this out. Make sure you get all the pepper out there as well, because you don't want it to be dirty. So clean that out. All right. So that was the first one. The next one that we're going to do is called Magic Milk, and this one's a little bit more fun. It involves more colors and things like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your milk. Again, whole milk is suggested just because it has more fats and more proteins in it, and that'll come into play later. But if you have soy milk or almond milk, 2%, really anything is going to work, just not quite as well as like the full fat milk. So you're similar to what we did before. You're going to pour your milk in, and you know, just needs to be enough to cover the surface. You don't have to use your whole gallon of milk. And then what you're going to do, you're going to take your food coloring, and you're just going to put a few drops in here or there. So just a couple here, a bit of some blue over here, and we'll do some red over here. So one thing to notice is, unlike water, when you put food coloring in water, you notice it like usually mixes almost right away. With the milk, it doesn't do that, because similar to water, milk also has surface tension. Now, milk is mostly made of water, but it does have other things like fats and proteins in it, and that's one reason why it doesn't mix so readily. So what we're gonna do is kind of similar. We're gonna take a Q-tip, we're gonna dip it in water, and when we first stick it in the milk, nothing happens. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't disturb the food coloring or anything. It just, now we have a milky Q-tip. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the other end of the Q-tip that isn't covered in milk, dip it in a little bit of water, and then take it, dip it in a little bit of some soap. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick our soapy Q-tip into the milk. And it takes a second, but what we usually see is that soap is once again going to kind of break down the surface tension of the milk. And as it does so, it kind of pushes the food coloring away. But notice, the longer I leave it in here, hopefully you can kind of see, move my hand, the red and the yellow and the blue have kind of started to spread out. And it takes a second, but you'll eventually start to see it hopefully start to swirl and kind of mix. And what is happening is, now that the surface tension of the milk is broken, the soap is kind of interacting with the fats and the proteins that are in the milk, and they're kind of moving and swirling together. And so if I move the Q-tip a little bit, you'll start to see kind of the fun experiment. And when I take the Q-tip out, you'll notice all of those colors really starting to swirl together and to move. So hopefully you guys can see this. If I pick it up, it's going to disturb it a little bit, but you see how all those colors are now starting to swirl and move and create different colors and things like that now that I've taken the soap Q-tip out. Like, you want to leave it in for just a second so you can break down the surface tension, but then when you pull it out, all of those colors are interacting with the fats and the proteins left in the milk. Now that the surface tension is broken, they kind of have range to move around. So this one is a little bit more fun for kids, obviously, because you know they get to play with the different colors and make the milk move around and become different colors. So that's a lot of fun for them. So those are 2 different experiments. They both focus kind of on the same concept, and again, that concept is surface tension. Basically, that film that water creates, the kind of the film on top of water, when the way that water bonds, that surface tension gets on top of it, and it's hard to break down. So you can do that simple one with the salt, or you can do this one with the magic milk. The magic milk is just a little bit more fun because the colors get to swirl around. So that's a lot of fun. Also, I do want to mention though, one thing, I'm going to pull this paper out so I don't give you guys any wrong information. But I'm only doing these experiments on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 o'clock, but the MSU Science Festival, usually it's an event, it was obviously canceled this year, but they still want to give a lot of information, and they have a really great resource that's actually online, either on Facebook or the website. The website is the sciencefestival.msu.edu. I'll put that in the description after the video is ended. I forgot to do that before, but again, it's sciencefestival.msu.edu. And almost every day they are also doing a lot of interactive videos, some seminars, some just fun stuff. They got a lot of web resources and digital presentations and other at-home activities that you can do with your kids. So they got a lot of fun experiments you can do there too. And tomorrow, Wednesday, April 15th, from 7 to 8 p.m., they're doing a fun program called News from the Underground in the Magic of Mycelium, which, if you don't know, it's kind of soil dynamics, and it deals with a little bit of some funguses, and they're going to be talking about mushrooms and fun stuff like that. It's actually really interesting. So again, if you want to have some more fun science resources and things like that from some experts in their field of study, MSU Science Festival on Facebook, and also sciencefestival.msu.edu online. And tomorrow, Wednesday, April 15th, from 7 to 8 p.m., again, News from the Underground, the Magic of Mycelium. So talking about soil dynamics and things like that. And this is a really great resource for your kids, a lot of science stuff, and just some fun lessons for them to do at home while we're all kind of stuck inside. So that was it for my part. On Thursday, we were going to do some make it like at-home rock candy. That experiment is giving me quite a bit of trouble, so we're probably not going to be able to do that just because it takes quite a while, but we're probably instead going to be doing make it like at home, do DIY crystals or geodes at home, which is also a lot of fun. So that's what we're going to be doing on Thursday, but also tomorrow, Wednesday, April 15th, is the MSU Science Festival, their News from the Underground and the Magic of Mycelium from 7 to 8 p.m. I will be back here on Thursday at 10 a.m. as always. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.